Good news, everybody. The reason that nobody is going to see Marvel movies now isn't because of superhero fatigue. It's a generational divide, according to the Russo Brothers. So we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna see what they have to say. This is my reaction to it. I have not read this article yet, but there's a lot of talk about superhero fatigue, because in the last year or two, especially, pretty much every superhero movie has bombed. It's been a massive failure, with the exception of like one or two. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was one of the few examples, but like these studios have spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on superhero movies, hoping for another Endgame, and they've landed on their faces, flat on their faces. Now, I do think Deadpool and Wolverine is actually going to do really well. Even if the movie's mid, I think just the name alone, I think it's going to do well. That being said, I don't have a lot of hope for Marvel going forward unless they do some major course correction, which I'm hoping the Deadpool movie does do. I'm hoping that they maybe prune the multiverse or something, because it's really dog shit. I mean, it's not good. The current direction of Marvel is not good. And like, it took how many years for mainstream media to admit that Marvel was not in a good place? I mean, seriously, it took like 5 or 6 years. If you said that Marvel's not in a good place just a couple of years ago, you were an alt-right Nazi. You were a bigot, a homophobe, or whatever. You hate women in media. You hate black folks. You hate all these names. When it was like, no, we just want good superhero movies with characters that are recognizable. If you want to bring new characters in later, that's fantastic. We don't have to replace all the OG Avengers with new people, but they do, because they had contracts, and a lot of people noped out, and the shows have been trash. Disney Plus shows have been trash. The movies have been trash. Let's see what the Russo Brothers have to say. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. No woohoos in this video. It's a very serious topic. Freaking superhero movies. And some people take it so damn seriously too. God, they will harass and dox and stalk you over Marvel shit. It's so wild. Let's come from Variety. Avengers directors say Marvel's recent problems aren't due to superhero fatigue, but a big generational divide about how you consume media. This is Joe and Anthony Russo, who I think were producers on Everything Everywhere All at Once, too, which was actually really good. And I think it deserved all the awards it got. That's personal opinion. But so they know their stuff, I think. But they said, yeah, they're responsible for some of Marvel's biggest hits from Civil War to Endgame, but they don't necessarily believe superhero fatigue is to blame for the struggles. I don't know. Marvel had a tough 2023 with Ant-Man, the Wasp, and the Marvels. Remember, the Marvels was going to make $1 billion, guys. It was going to be the biggest thing ever. If you didn't go see it, you were just an alt-right chud. It was a huge failure. Speaking recently to Games Radar, the director said that Marvel's current issues boil down to the changes in how people absorb media. It's a Hollywood-wide issue, not just Marvel. I don't know, guys. I'm going to have to, I know I'm not a director, but I'm going to have to disagree, because we have a lot of movies that are making bank that aren't shitty superhero movies. I'm just saying. I think there's a kernel of truth to it being, it's not even superhero fatigue as it is shitty movie fatigue. I think it's a reflection of the current state of everything. It's difficult right now. It's an interesting time, Joe Russo said. I think we're in a transitional period, and people don't know quite yet how they're going to receive stories moving forward, or what kinds of stories they're going to want. They want good stuff that's not shit, and there has to be a reason for them to go to the theater. It used to be that Marvel movies were an event. You would go to the theater, and then we put the shitty shows on Disney Plus, and it just watered the whole thing down. There's a big generational divide about how you consume media. There's a generation that's used to appointment viewing and going to a theater on a certain date to see something, but it's aging out. Meanwhile, the new generation are, I want it now, I want to process it now, and then moving on to the next thing. Well, just put the damn MCU on TikTok then and call it a day, right? They process while doing two other things at the same time. You know, it's a very different moment in time than it's ever been. And so I think everyone, including Marvel, is experiencing the same thing. This transition, I think it really is probably what's at play more than anything else. I don't agree. I'm sorry. I have a lot of respect for the Russo brothers. I do. I really do. I don't agree with this. I think this is damage control. because Hollywood can't admit that they dropped the ball. Again, people are showing up for Godzilla. They're showing up for Dune. They're showing up for Oppenheimer. They're even showing up for Barbie. But they're not showing up for the Marvels. They're not showing up for Ant-Man. They're not showing up for Aquaman. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm pretty sure the problem is the content. I think the content itself. People will go to the theater. They will get legitimately excited and go to the theater if it's worth their time to do so. And these movies always used to be worth people's times. They were always events, and then they just became freaking Disney Plus fodder. Russo said the new generation of moviegoers. Wait, this sounds like kind of hey there, fellow kids. Joe Russo noted that the new generation of moviegoers communicates through memes and headlines with nobody reading past 2 sentences. So everything's 100 characters or less, or 10-second videos on social media sway through. I was joking about them putting the MCU on TikTok. I think that the 2-hour format, the structure that goes into making a movie, it's over a century old now, and everything always transitions. So there's something happening again, and that form is repetitive. It's hard to reinvent that form, and I think the next generation is looking for ways to tell their own stories that service their own sort of collective ADHD. That's a lot to process too. You're basically saying, hey, kids today, they all have ADHD. They can't be bothered to watch our movies. That's why our movies are failing, because kids have ADHD. Anthony Russo told Games Radar that superhero fatigue has nothing to do with superheroes. It's just fatigue in general. The superhero fatigue question was around long before the work we were doing. So it's sort of an eternal complaint. Like we were always used to cite this back in our early days with the superhero work. People used to complain about Westerns in the same way, but they lasted for decades and decades and decades. They were continually reinvented and brought to new heights as they went on. Well, that's the difference. They were brought to new heights. As concerns about superhero fatigue continue to be discussed in the comic book movie world, the Batman villain Paul Dano made headlines for telling The Independent, it's a good thing. It's an interesting moment. People are like, now what? Joseph Quinn, who's going to be in the MCU as Johnny Storm Human Torch, said that he's not too concerned about superhero fatigue as he gets ready to make his own superhero movie. Well, that'd be kind of stupid. Like, yeah, I think it's over. The story of the Fantastic Four feels like we want to get this right. Well, good luck with that. They've already made a bunch of changes, but who knows? There are aspects of it. They're very different from other Marvel films that felt very compelling to me. And going back to who's involved, I think it's brilliant, the cast, etc., etc. Of course you're going to say that. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with the Russo brothers. I think that look, Endgame was damn near 3 hours long. Spider-Man No Way Home was like a 3-hour long movie. Dune, ridiculously long, and people went to go see Dune. They went to go see Oppenheimer. People sat through Oppenheimer. I sat through Oppenheimer. 3 hours. Very, very boring, very dry stuff. And I think the movie was good. Yeah, I thought the movie was good. Lot of Gen Z and millennials at the showing of Oppenheimer that we went to, and it was sold out. A dry, black and white, historical biopic. And lots of people turned up for it. I'm just saying. So it is absolutely positively, I believe, a Marvel problem, a DC problem. I think if the movies were good, the people would be there. That's my personal opinion. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.